Good morning, everybody. Keith here. Sorry about the disheveled looks. Just got out of bed. Sure nobody of knowledge really minds. But I got something important to talk about again today. Of course, always something important. And hoping people will understand where I'm coming from. If you look in my posts here, you'll see a post, in the notification post of me doing a video here, I referred to Genesis 1:26 through 28, again, wherein man is given dominion over the land, air, and water. And my take on that is, I am law. I am my own law. I am self. And I determine what I wish to do, period. Now, with that, we got to remember, in these man-made laws, what we're doing is actually denying what is rightfully ours. By abiding by somebody else's law, we are giving up, we are denying the land, air, and water of our own self by giving ourself to that law. That's all switched around. See, Genesis 1:26 through 28 tells us we are law, land, air, and water. And we are supposed to be stewards. We're supposed to have dominion. And remember, dominion doesn't mean to dominate. It means to steward. We're supposed to be teachers. We're supposed to be learners. We're supposed to teach each other. This is where the old adage comes from. It takes a village to raise a child. It's what they use in your 12-step programs when you hear people say we can't do it alone. Because in self, when I uphold my laws, I have to uphold them for you as well. When I think what is good for me is actually good for me, and I've got the experience, then I've got to uphold that for you as well. When I deem that something isn't good for me, then I have to deem that it isn't good for you either. And so when it comes down to this thing about being law, we have to remember we got it from our Creator, or out of our creation. It's a natural thing. We're supposed to go forward and learn. And in that learning, we're supposed to determine and be able to discern what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, what is positive, what is negative. And when we get to the point where we made that we made that determination on whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, positive, negative, whatever, we have to be able to share that. And we must share that. If we're going to uphold that we don't want anything bad to happen to us, then we have to uphold it for our neighbor. Love thyself as thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Deny me and you deny him. Deny him and he'll deny you. And that's the basics of it all. When we come down to this point where we're at today, where we've got all this corruption going on in the courts, we have to remember that we're the ones that instituted it. We're the ones that allowed this to happen. And we did that by giving up that dominion. We gave up the position as educators and students to become slaves out of convenience. See, it was a convenience back in the day when the public school system first started out. It was a convenience for the mom who was in the house doing all the cooking and stuff and whatnot and helping with the chores. Both mom and dad were busy, so it was convenient for them to send their children off to somebody else to educate them. And in the beginning, that might have seemed all right. But the problem with that is that we put too much emphasis on knowledge instead of right and wrong. Because the position that we're in today, and I want people to understand, I've done a lot of research. I research constantly, and I use it for my own gain and knowledge, and putting it back out there to other people that need to use it. And I do my best to try to explain how to use it. Even though I haven't used much of it myself, I know it's there, and that's all it is right now, is knowledge. However, that knowledge is what started being slavery to begin with. The facts in those knowledge, the facts in the U.S. Code, the facts in the UCC Code, the facts in international trust laws, the facts in canon laws, the facts in admiralty law, the facts in common law. And when we get to the point where that corruption affects us as it did myself, and we start researching, and I'm sorry to admit this, but I was one of those sheeple. I was one of the ones that looked out and saw everything going on down the street, sirens and everything, and then ducked back inside. Not anymore. I've learned, not only is it not good for me, but of many times looking out that door and seeing it happen to everybody else, I realized it's no good for them either. It's no good for your children to be born in a hospital. It's not any good. Matter of fact, if you understand things, a hospital is a military venue. Public hospitals are military venues. They are owned by the government, and the government is under admiralty, which is a martial law type setup as we have today to enforce contracts. And that's all it is. And so when it comes to your education, like I said, I don't mind putting the information out there. I feel it's my duty. It's part of my stewardship. And when I put this stuff out there, I put it out there because I know the facts. A lot of it I don't have experience in, but I know the facts. I know the facts that are presented. In many cases, I've read a lot of cases. I've read unlawful arrest cases. I've read warrant cases. I've read travel cases. I've read trust cases. I've read loan cases, fraud mortgage cases, foreclosure cases. I've been involved in some of this stuff. Here when I was out in New Hampshire, sad to say, I was involved in a tragic situation that ended up causing a family to run and hide. We have to quit running and hiding. And the only way we can do that is by putting this information out there. And we have to put it out there for us and for them. Those that oppress us. We have to put it out there and let them know that we know. Let them know that we are not just students anymore, but we are educators. We're going to bring this to them. Just like they brought it to us. And just like it was brought to us subtly over a period of time, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. So we have to take the time to educate ourselves so we can turn around and educate others. And that's what it's all about. And when it comes to, like I said, that subtle changes, I want to mention, people seem to think that death is something that is just instantaneous. Now, just like being born is a singular moment, an event, death is the same thing. And just like being born brings on life, death brings on life. Death isn't an occurrence that happens just in an instant. The instant event is merely the loss of the electrical pulse, the loss of that life that was in existence. But the death process itself provides for more life. So in our own oppression, we have to provide for justice. We have to provide for righteousness. We have to provide for the future. Because once we're done, we're still just that self. There's still all of the all. And I've mentioned before, the universe, multiverse, and omniverse. So when we die, it's us that dies. The multiverse doesn't die. The omniverse doesn't die. Those both will take from what we have left. We are still existing. We just no longer have that electrical pulse. So when we come to this point where we realize all this stuff, and I'm hoping you people realize it, and I'm hoping you're passing it on. I see the community growing. I see myself, lately I've gotten so many friends requests. And I can only hope that they're looking for information and guidance and not just the information. Because the information isn't going to do you any good. Going to school does you no good. Using the information you gain is where the good comes from. It can also bring the bad. It can be positive or negative. And that's what brings about our wisdom, is the experience of using it. See, first you have an education where you're learning it. Then once you got that education, you have knowledge. Once you use that knowledge and can discern the good and bad, positive and negative, right and wrong, then you have wisdom. And this is what we have to pass on, is that process of life and death, the process of the omniverse. Because see, no longer is it about myself. It's about everything, not just everybody and not just myself. Myself is the universe. You and everybody that I involve myself with is the multiverse. You and everybody else and everything that you're involved with. Everything is the omniverse. And we have to make sure that when we wake up and we're able to start discerning this stuff, we discern those differences. We discern the difference between right and wrong. We discern the difference between life and death. We discern the difference between self and all. And those are the things that, like I said, back when the public education system started, we lost grasp of, because they weren't teaching it in the public schools like our mom and dads were teaching us at home. See, the public schools don't care about you. They care about their paycheck. That is why public education was instilled. Now, it came about because certain people thought they were good at educating people in reading, writing, and arithmetic. And they did so well with their own children that their own children excelled, and they no longer had a need to educate their own children. So they went out in the world and they started educating other people. Other people saw this and saw it as a convenience for their own selves. Now, the problem with that, again, like I said, is we lost the concept of self. We lost the concepts of truth, justice, righteousness, in knowing that if it's good for me, then it should be good for them. And just because it's convenient doesn't mean it's good. We have to be able to discern that. When we come to this point in age where everybody's so dependent on commercialism, we find it hard to redact that commercialism. And believe you me, I'm telling you, I've been doing nothing but trade and barter for almost 3 years now, and it's rough. It's rough. There are things that I go without that I would like, but I don't need. And there's nothing that I ever go without that I do need. I'm still here. So obviously I haven't gone without something that I needed. If it was something I needed, I wouldn't be here if I didn't get it. And yes, Tony, that's what they're concerned with. Edward Mandell House instilled that into the system in the early 19th century, or early early 20th century, when he talked to the president and explained it to him how they could take control of the people by making things convenient for them. He didn't use those exact words, but if you read the quote, and all you got to do, just Google Edward Mandell House. Edward Mandell, Mandell, House. And you'll see what we're talking about, that we're dealing with today. It's total corruption, indoctrination. And when we come to realize that everything we do today, I mean everything, is out of convenience. And if you have any problem with my opinion on that, revert back to my video I posted just before, just a couple more posts earlier than my video here. You'll see I did a video August 7th about quit crying about your damn rights. Because you don't have any rights. Under Genesis 1:26-28, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to self, to maintain that electrical pulse that exists within myself, that electrical pulse that exists within all of you, that electrical pulse that exists throughout all that exists. And we have to remember that when we don't take care of those responsibilities, then we've given that up, and we're no longer stewards. So again, I understand the thing about convenience today, because it's been instilled over many, many, many decades and centuries. It's not going to happen overnight. Most people can't go out and just quit commerce like I did. And granted, I'm going to get back into it. Believe you me, I'm going to be making waves in that admiralty jurisdiction of the sea. There'll be tidal waves, tsunamis. People will pay attention to the knowledge I now have and can now present, because I now know how to use it and have that wisdom. And I can only hope that that's what you people are taking out of what I put out. Because that's what I see as my position, my duty as a steward. And again, not to myself, and not just to all of you, but to everything. All the creatures that he gave us dominion over. And when he says, thou shalt not kill, he didn't say thou shalt not kill another person, another man. He said, thou shalt not kill. We are not animals. We are a specific creation in his image. And he didn't create man to kill. He created animals to kill and live off of each other. And he created man to be stewards among that, and to be able to go forth and prosper and be abundant by using the materials given. And when an animal dies or is killed by another animal, we can use that flesh. But we're not directly supposed to go out and kill. So we have to remember all this stuff when we think about our duties and responsibilities. We don't have rights. We have what is right and wrong. But for me, the concept of right, of having rights, aren't rights, they're duties. When you think it's so convenient that you have a right to spout your mouth off and babble, then you really sound like an idiot. I know I did. I did for many years. I did for many years, going into these courtrooms and cussing and swearing and fingering the judges and telling them they better not fucking touch me, using all kinds of language, calling them communists and everything. And from now on, I have to do things in love, not just for myself, but for them too. I have to understand that they came from the same source I came from. And so for it to be good for me, in speaking outwardly, like I'm doing today to you people. I have to do the same and have the whole and hold the same composure when I'm in these courts, when I'm writing documents. I have to hold that same composure and remember it's my duty. Because even though a lot of these people are deemed to know because of the positions they're in, a lot of this stuff we're presenting today, they don't know. And we have to admit that, because there's no possible way I can know all of the uniform trust laws, the uniform commercial code, the admiralty laws, the common law. I can't, there's no possible way I can know all of that. At least not at this time. Don't let me let my head get too big, but I'm a pretty intelligent guy, and I think all of you people are as well. So if I think I'm not all that intelligent, again, back to what I was saying, if I think it's good for me, I think I should believe it's good for you as well. And so if I think it's proper to me, it should be proper to you. That's right, Andy. And that's what it's all about. What is proper and what isn't proper. What's right and what's wrong. What's justiciable and what isn't justiciable. What's good morally and what's not good morally. We have to think about our prospects, not just in the now time, but we have to understand the concept of a future. We have to be able to realize and imagine that future. We're not to become dependent upon that future, because it's like an attractor factor thing. The more positive thoughts we have, the better our imagination becomes. The more positive our imagination becomes, the more positive our future can come. Right, inward manifestation outwardly attracts. I love you, brother. You say things in such a more simplistic format than I can sometimes. And basically, what we're talking about here is your own indoctrination, your own convenience. These are things you own. When we talk about you can't own property, you're right, you don't. But the things you do own are the things that you hold inwardly, your intangibles. That's what you truly own. Because only you have those. They're all responsibilities. And if you care to take it and give it to somebody else so that you are convened, then you're more than likely going to turn into what I turned into and what many people in this world turned into, where we look out the door when we hear those sirens and lights and wonder, and our first thought was, I wonder what he did wrong. Well, today we're realizing that it likely isn't what he did wrong. It's likely the dependence and the convenience of somebody else to be able to oppress others in order to fatten their paychecks in a commercial sense, rather than being prosperous and abundant in a spiritual sense. See, the commercialism is the physicality of wealth. And people have that misconstrued, I think, with prospering. Prospering is to be abundant in multitude or addition, continuously adding on to and building up of. Whereas in the public education system, we are detracting from that. We're detracting from our own spirituality when we divide up our family by sending our children off to somebody else that we don't even really know. We have this thing all around the world. Everybody believes in this full faith and credit. You better start giving full faith and credit to your creation. That's where it belongs. So when you get into this stuff, I hope It's not for selfish reasons that go unheard, unspoken, unacted upon. If you're going to get into this movement, you have to do it full-fledged in every sense that you can. Again, like I said, I quit commerce almost 3 years ago, and I know most people can't do that. Most people aren't single individuals with nothing that they're responsible for except doing right and wrong. Many of you have children in school. Many of you are fighting the birth certificate and the Child Protective Services and the Social Security account and all of this. I don't have to worry about that any longer. I don't even, and don't let me confuse you. There's a lot of that stuff I haven't done. I haven't authenticated the birth certificate. I haven't officially rescinded any contracts on a public forum, though I've done a lot of that stuff in the case that I last had here almost 3 years ago. But that's all private files. So I have to redo all that stuff and present them in a public forum in order to rebut that public presumption. But when it comes to denying him, I'll never deny him. He is my creator. He was the creator of my mom and dad. He was the creator of my mom and dad's dad and mom. He was the creator of my mom and dad's mom and dad's mom and dad. Therefore, he is my creator. And I can't deny that. And again, like I said, a lot of you people can't do the things that I do in regards to the commercial world because you're still bound up in all that convenience. You've been convened. So hopefully one of these days you'll learn your jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction is the words that are right for you, the intangibles that spew forth, the things that tell others who you are and what you're about. And if they see that you're about truth and what's right and righteous and fair and impartial, they will be attracted to you. When you go into courts and you start cussing and swearing and all of this other stuff like I have, everybody else in the forum, in the spectators galley, thinks, wow, that dude's crazy. It's a lunatic. When you go spewing off that kind of shit to your mom and dad, yeah, they'll call you a lunatic and tell you to change your last name. But when you learn it, and you have that education, and you now have that knowledge, and you're able to start using it, and you become wise to it, and you can go into these courts and speak wisely in a belligerent manner by using the words against them, then they see your belligerence isn't belligerence, it's truth. And so there's a document running around a couple of my friends have come up with and have been putting forth in a lot of these child protective cases. And I suggest everybody get on the board. If you're going to play this game, get your player piece out and put some consideration behind it. Going to see if this is going to work and bring my brother Andy on. Because the only thing of real value when it comes to consideration, again, in this commercial world, they call it substantive value, something that's backed by something of substance, gold, silver, commodities like flour, grain, beans, coffee, things like that. That's your commercial consideration. But when we talk about spiritual consideration, we're talking about what I mentioned, those intangibles, those things that we think about, the things that hold our heart in a certain place of morals. And when we spew those forth, we show that we've given consideration, and that consideration shows in what we spew forth. If we're going to go into courts and cussing and swearing and damning everybody and calling them all kinds of names, then we really haven't given not much consideration. We're going upon our emotions. And so when we learn things and we educate ourselves and have that knowledge and can go forth with wisdom, that shows that we've given it much more consideration, and now it has much more value, has a much greater value, and they'll see that. How you doing, brother Andy? Everybody say hi to Andy, my brother from our brother from across the pond. Yeah,
Hi
yeah.
there, brother. I would just like to say that if you're going to go to their place of business, these tennis courts, that you don't accept the surname. We only have a family clan name, and we only have the first given Christian name, a calling. I have a calling, it's Andy. If you wish to name me, that's lovely, but I will require a just and fair compensation if you wish me to take on any other name or title or state entity.
Yes, and that's where it's funny. I'm trying to figure out all the correct parse syntax that, or the different forms that they use aside from the correct parse syntax. And when we see things like first, middle, last, and last, middle, last, first, middle, and first and last, and first, middle, initial, last, those are all different forms, meaning they're different languages.
They're different, yeah, different body corporate. It's all fictional. It's all commercial. It's all ways of gaining joinder with you to verbally contract and trip you over into the legalese realm into speaking their language, well, unbeknownst to man himself. You know, it's all
Correct.
trickery and sorcery. It's magicry of the language. And when man breaks it back down and speaks in a layman's way, and you are recognised as an idiot of the court, then man can be dealt with as such, but not to be mistaken with that of a fool, because we have the power within to discharge and dispel and dismiss any of these spells cast against us.
Yes. And I want to tell people a little story about my last case here about 3 years ago. When I started waking up, I went out and I realized that, well, that makes sense. We do have a right to travel, and therefore I have the right to pronounce that. And so I went out to
Absolutely.
the local hardware store and I got two placards that said private property. They're about the same size as the license plate, and that's where I put them. It was right on the front and right on the back of my truck and my car pole. And so I traveled around for quite a while, and I actually even got pulled over 4 times before my incident where I got taken to court over it. And all those times previous, I signed UCC 1-308 and then never showed up in court. So I'd been traveling around like that for a while. And then when I finally got pulled into court through the sheriff's department, I went to my arraignment and I spelled my name in correct parse syntax on and for the record. And immediately I was threatened with arrest for not participating in the procedures. And at that time, I knew I was onto something. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I was right in my presumption that I was right
Absolutely.
in going forward with this. I just didn't have enough education yet. But what I've learned today is just that. Like I said, they've got the different formats of the names that they put. And back in school, I was always known as Little O'Keefe. And when I reflected back on this during my studies, I realized that's exactly what it is. Each one of them is a different forum. It's a different venue. It's a different,
Different
it's a
jurisdiction
different
to that of
fictional
man.
place. Even though you're
Yes.
in the same physical place, it's a different fictional place. And
Yes.
basically that's what it's all about, is the place that you put yourself. Are you going to put your place in a fictional venue? Or are you going to
Well,
remain in the living spiritual venue that proves life, period?
absolutely. Well, you can only present yourself unless you have a member of the bar system, the legal realm, re-present your legal fiction, the dead fiction. At the end of the day, to be seen as live man in the moment, present in the present time, gifted as a present, well, that's when man can utter that which he knows, say what you know what you say, mean what you say, and say what you mean. It's it's a long
Yes.
journey. It's not easy, um, but with the right application and the correct intent, with goodwill only, so you have clean hands and you're in honour, well then you can be recognised as the idiot of the court because you have no business being there speaking their language, We are not licensed,
Exactly.
nor are we obligated to do so. So they have to turn the terms back to that of man. And if your paperwork is correct and in order, you can just refer back to your paperwork anyway, uttering very little, because we're not there to utter their language.
Correct. Correct. And one of these things I've come across in my research, and I just brought it back up recently because this affidavit that's going around in regards to helping people get their children back from Child Protective Services, is the stamp. The stamp is one of the most important tools that we can use to keep things in a private venue. The UPU is your international your international enforcement of contract law. And the contract law is bound, it's bonded. And when you place a stamp on a document, that puts consideration to the document, puts
Valuable
value on the document.
consideration. It does, because the stamps, not unlike the money, the stamps have an intrinsic value backing them. They have the silver backing. And whereas the federal note, the English Bank of England note, they have no intrinsic value since the Gold Standard Act was removed. So stamps are
Right.
currency of the realm. They are the currency. We give them the flow, and they do have intrinsic value monetary wise. So yes, and that's why they do give the valuable consideration to any document.
Yes, and when you understand this stuff, you realize, like when you're buying property, okay, when you really want to buy a piece of property, you can't use Federal Reserve notes because there is no intrinsic value. You have to use lawful coin, something with true value.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Andy's talking about those stamps, they're backed by gold. So you could technically, and prove it by their own laws, the laws that exist on the books, by using the words against them, you can technically pay for land, for property, for anything you want with postage stamps.
Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, to have a possessory title in your hand, which would be your allodial title. Of course, you can use any instrument of trade, levy, and barter. You can discharge it to your estate. You can do all these things. You can do it with the power of your pen. But ultimately, yes, you can exchange your sweat equity for stamps and exchange that in a trade, levy, and barter situation for property or assets or whatever you wish and require.
Yes. If you look on my posts,
children are assets and property too, and you're just speaking of them now, and the mums and dads are trying to get them back from these custodial cares, and the realm in which to speak is that of property. They are proper to us, and to go in there and say child, when you look at the word child, when you look at the etymology, it's property of corporation, and we are not the property of corporation. We are God's children, and we are all ye gods, it says clearly in the Bible, because we are in that image. So there is no one above us and there is no one below us. In the eyes of the Lord and the Creator, we are all equal. And if someone has stolen your property or your assets, then in the private realm, the way to get them back, the way to retrieve your property is seek an instant restitution. Man requires instant restitution of property forthwith. And it's as simple as that. They cannot mess with that instruction.
Correct. And when we talk about value in today's world, we were just talking about the stamps. You can buy land with stamps. You can buy anything with stamps. You can also do the same thing. If you look back through my posts, you'll see what's known as a coffee bean case, where a guy legitimately posed all of the right information that if the court wants to fine him $1,140 some dollars and some odd cents, then he'll make payment in coffee beans, and they have to accept. And they did. They had to accept his payment in coffee beans. And it's a very well-known case, even though they're trying to strike it from the books. And when we think about this, all of your money is supposed to have a standard of weights and measures. That's what gives it value. Your Federal Reserve notes is a paper. There's a piece of paper, and it has no weight or measure. When we think about weights and measures, we think about weights in regards to gold and silver, And when we think about measures, we think about the commodities exchanges, coffee beans, bushels, board feet, things like that that we use in our commodities exchange. And when we talk about that stuff, that's where the substantive value comes from. And then when we talk about the spiritual consideration, the spiritual value, it's the intent in which you're using it. If you're going to use the commercial system of weights and measures as the way it's designed, then you need to do so fairly and justiciably, righteously with your fellow brothers. But when you're doing it with ill intent, like the courts are doing it, then it actually has no value. It has no value.
Right.
And that's why they depend on the Federal Reserve notes, because then they don't have to worry about that stuff. At least so they think. But like I said, the awakening is coming and we're bringing it to them. And slowly they will be educated. And there will be many that will hang, I'm sure. There will be many that
Can I
hang.
quickly show you? Can I quickly show you? Look, there's a thumbprint
Hey, there you go.
and a thumbprint and an autograph on this document. This is a allodial title, and I don't know if you can read it there, but I've purchased a private conveyance. People may know as a motor car, motor vehicle, whatever you. I have purchased myself a private conveyance for the sum of £4. Payment in the form of £2 of carrots and a turnip. It's written here. You see, so trade levy and barter.
Nice.
Because there were some third-party intermeddling with our private affairs. So I've had the allodial title changed to my good self, as opposed to those that are chasing around a fictional debt. So your pounds, like you're saying, your measurements, your instruments, whatever your instrumentation is, get it down, get it in front of you, whether it be pounds sterling, pounds of potatoes, or pounds of beef. Make it on there. And it cannot be rebutted.
Correct. And what you people just saw, that thumbprint with his endorsement, that's his own stamp. That's
Absolutely.
his own seal.
The Creator gave me this. I don't need to buy anybody else's. I don't need one from the clergy. I don't need one from the cloth. The good Creator gave me one on each hand. And this proves this is identifiable only to me. Nobody else has a thumb exactly the same as that. Only I. And only I can give that life. And it is that life with my sworn affidavit that will bring any truth to the table that cannot be rebutted. They won't have a leg to stand on law.
Just like the U.S. stamp, the postage stamp has consideration in the commercial venue because it's backed by substance. His stamp, like I do the same thing. Red thumbprint, right thumbprint on the last letter of my name, and then on stamps, I'll put the thumbprint on the edge of the stamp so it's just touching the stamp, and then endorse it at a 45-degree angle from top left to bottom right.
As you draw your sword, that's how you put your autograph there. That's how you give your due consideration.
And that's your spiritual consideration. That's
Absolutely.
showing your spiritual intent. Correct. And that's your.
We are willed to do goodwill. That's what it is.
Correct. And
it's a deed of assignment.
And you just touched on something there too. You said it's the drawing of the sword, and that's what they talk about at arm's length.
Absolutely, because
at arm's length, you don't want to get in reach of that sword. Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to get in reach of that sword. I'm at arm's length.
Absolutely, you are.
So
when you've read the verbiage
stuff, people.
and the verbatim inside in the correct jurisdiction, you use the correct language in the correct context with the narrative. It cannot be rebutted. It's as simple as that. Only these corporations can only bring another corporation to court. They can't deal with a man. They don't have the jurisdiction. They only have the jurisprudence, which is a theory of law, and that's the assumptions and presumptions of the common law realm. And man is speaking to try and go to the common law. He won't get you a remedy. Common law will suffer man a wrong because of its assumption and presumption. And that's why man must rely and evoke the maxims of equity and use your trust, your birth certificate, know your instrumentation, know who your person is and know who you are, know thyself.
Right. And just so people understand, I was recently involved when I was over in New Hampshire. there was a gal that went to court, and we asked the court two questions. And this is undeniable. It has to have an answer.
Take your finger off the microphone, brother.
Is this a court of equity? And the prosecution objected, relevance, and it was sustained. The next question was, is this a court of law? See, there's only two courts, a court of equity or a court of law. At least that's what we've been taught. But when we look up the definition of equity, it means fair and impartial. It has nothing to do with commerce. That's another trick of the courts that they use. All courts are courts of law.
Absolutely. Common law and equity, they run along side by side. They are completely different jurisdictions. They're like oil and water. They are not to be mixed. However, equity will not suffer a wrong at the common law, at law level. You know, equity abhors forfeiture. It has all of its own maxims. It acts in personam and all these different maxims that it comes under. And no other law of the realm shall interfere with it. It's of the highest judiciary.
Right, and this is the basic principle that they're using against us in these courts, is that they can do wrong to each other all they want because they're within their own private corporation, and it has nothing to do with law. And so when they do something wrong to us, they keep us in that venue until we learn and take it out of that venue and show them through our own words.
I asked it.
In beginning was word.
Tony Chester is asking, I asked if it was common law or admiralty. See, admiralty, maritime, common law, they are all of the same realm. They're all public at law level. They are all out there in the county courts for everyone to come play and see. It's in the newspapers, it's in the articles, paparazzi. It's all there at the same level. There is no difference. People who think they are different, they are deluded. There is only difference in the common law at law level with the private side of equity and trust. That's all there is. There is nothing else in between. All the rest is ecclesiastical, canonized, church, cabal, bull. Simple as that.
Right, and Tony, just so I can help clear this up a little bit again, the common law when it was first constructed was done under substantive matters as well as procedural. Today, we don't see the substantive matters of common law anymore. A lot of times, when we look back to the Bible, we see the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth thing. And in common law, it's just not right. It's just not morally right when we think about thou shalt not kill, that if somebody does kill somebody, it's still not right to turn around and kill them. However, when we look at that eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth thing, that leaves us in a conundrum. So what happened was they kind of dropped the substantive part, and now if you want to reach common law, you have to do it through process. That's the only difference between the others, is the process. If you're going to go in there and subject yourself to these courts in a physical manner, you're already, by physically appearing, it's a way of communicating, yes,
absolutely. You've gained joined at the
when I got all those traffic tickets. Right. And like I said, when I got all those tickets a while ago, where I just signed UCC 1-308 and never appeared in court, let me help you guys understand. These were tickets that I got previous to my last court appearance. And when I went to that court appearance, I asked about them. Though they are on the record, and I can go down there and get a copy of them, and they still are adjudicated as guilty, and they still have fines attached to them, there is no enforcement because I've not done anything beyond signing with a reservation of my rights, declaring that I'm in my private capacity. Absolutely. And unless they can find some way to threaten and coerce me into going into those courts under that voluntary jurisdiction. And they'll admit it. They'll admit it.
There can't be
right in and out of those courtrooms today.
That's the maximum of equity. It abhors forfeiture. It will not suffer a fine to the man because only persons are in the commercial realm. You see?
It's all
Yep.
about your paperwork, having your paperwork crisp and clear before. I don't advocate attending these court special appearances, but however, if you do, please allow your paperwork to speak for itself. Allow the 2D to be brought alive by the 3D. Refer to it only.
Okay. Mark Aspie asks, is the UK same code? Okay, and I'm going to tell you the same thing my brother Andy tells you. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all basically the exact same thing. They're
You
just
are
using different wording or different
yeah.
numbers. They're
You have a
different
common
titles.
law jurisdiction over there in America. There's a common law jurisdiction which is overrun by the force of law, which acts in your statutes and your codes and all those procedures. And you have your trust and equity for man, but ultimately they're going to try and push you into the commercial realm every time because it's a fraudulent debt-based system that they are, imposing on a person. And to impose is to trespass. Every maneuver they make is to trespass against a person because over there in Washington, D.C. or the state of Columbia, whichever you know it as, that is your square mile jurisdiction right there. And anything outside of that jurisdiction, that's why your boys over there in blue, they carry the guns and everything like that because you're under martial law. So anybody that thinks they're under a common law realm anyway, they're also deluded. There is a martial law out on the streets, and that's why the Walmarts are getting changed to these incarceration camps that they are, and all this other stuff getting rolled out for 2021. There is a bigger scheme here, there's a bigger agenda at foot, and all this shall be implemented by 2030. So unless you have ring fenced your property and your assets, your children, your houses, your cars, and everything else that you've got going on there, there's a big old grab going on at the moment by the bar system, the banks, and those that run the plane. I don't say globe. And they're coming to snatch everything from the rich man, poor man, and every dog in between. So it's of vital importance that you get your house into order, that you know whom you are, and that you can dance with that devil if and when required, and you can shoot him down at the same time.
Tony, where can we see examples of type of documents to place on the case? Well, like I said, there's an affidavit going around, and I suggest everybody get into this group, the common law way. The common law way. And learn this stuff first. You can't use this document until you learn the information in it. But the information in it, I assure you, it is my highest opinion that this document will work in any case here in America. I don't know about over where Andy's at or over where Mark's at, but here in America, the wording on this document, according to the codes that it's referring to in the cases, will work in almost any case because what it's doing is pointing out the fraud, the commercial fraud that initiates the entire process. And nothing that is born of fraud is valid, even in their commercial system.
It's all de facto.
And this
so I've
points
got a
that
question
out.
there, brother. I've got a question there from Mark Axby saying, what do you sign a traffic act as, Andy? Well, for start off, I don't sign anything unless it's a valuable consideration for me. I would only ever give an autograph. And a traffic act or a traffic code is for persons, it's for drivers, it's for shepherds. And that's what, it's of the commercial realm. So unless I'm out there in the commercial realm earning the fiscal pound, I don't have to adhere to any traffic act or code or policy or protocol or procedure because I'm going about my travelling business on the King's Highway from A to B unhindered, as is my inalienable way to do so. It's my will, and I have goodwill. And if anyone suffers a wrong, then I have a national insurance and which I can fall back upon, for which my person is bonded to clear any other man of any wrong that may be caused.
Right. Hey, real quick here. Mary is Tom. Affidavit doesn't work, mother. Common law, it was abolished. Bullshit. 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 Quit putting that stupid shit out there. Affidavit is the only way it works. An affidavit is a statement of truth. Get this, people. Quit putting bullshit out there. If you don't know what you're talking about, keep quiet. Sorry about that, people.
That's all good, Keith.
But,
it's the godly way. Affidavit doesn't work is an absolute load of garbage. It's rubbish. Of course an affidavit works. My affidavit of truth is my affidavit of truth. Okay? Whether it's factual or not is different. If I tell you a pig flew over my house last night and I confirm that on paper, that's my truth. You can't rebut that. Whether that's factual or not, we have to get down to the basis of it. you know? And that's what law is all about here. It's one man's word against the other with the facts. We have what's right and wrong, fact and fiction, nothing else. There's nothing else here to be adjudicated. That's why the judge is there on the bench. Right, wrong, fact, fiction, nothing else. And an affidavit is the only factual way of getting it across there. And you can prove with the evidence with it. There you go. So stop talking rubbish. You're only winding yourself up. You're lying to yourself and those around you.
Amanda Marie, they says they won't allow just anyone in the common law wage group and kick people out of it. I don't know if they kicked anybody out. I'm sure that if they have, it's only because they're not using the information properly. Like I said, you can't get this document and just throw it at the court. It's not going to work that way. When you walk into court with this document and they ask you questions about it, you start sounding like you're babbling. Of course it's not going to work. The only way it's going to work is if you know the information.
You have to understand, you have to have a comprehension of that which you do, your due diligence. It's absolutely, you can't just go in there on a whim and hope you're going to wing this thing through. Because these individuals that sit on that bench, they go to bed with dictionaries, they wake up with dictionaries, they eat, sleep, fart, shit words for a living, and they will run circles around your ass.
Hold on. Mary is Tom. Let me tell you something. You ask, why did you get so mad? How do you and an affidavit on written, how did you and a affidavit on written statement? The reason I got mad is because you put a statement out there that was telling everybody that what we're doing is wrong. And that's part of the discord. Yes, I get angry. We're doing what's right. And if you don't believe in that, you need to shut up and just go back to your cognitive dissonance. Otherwise, listen to this entire video from start to finish, because like I said earlier, it is our responsibility to learn so that we know, and then use that knowledge so that we have the wisdom of using it so we can pass it on to somebody else. So when you come on here and say that affidavits don't work, that means your affidavit didn't work. Doesn't mean nobody else's affidavit doesn't work. It means your affidavit didn't work. Educate yourself first before you go making stupid comments, distracting people from reality. We have proof on and for the record in their own books that an affidavit is the way to do it. Period. Yes. And you're sitting here trying to rebut it in this public forum while we're trying to educate people. Yes, I get mad.
Evidence, Keith. I have got factual evidence and documents in my dwelling that affidavit of truth is the only way forward, because it shall not be rebutted. It's my truth, and that's that. If you can back it up with the evidence, who can rebut it?
And so, Amanda Marie, when it comes to the common law way group and getting kicked out, it's the only reason I can think of is because of people like Mary and Tom in their reaction. You can't just take this document and go throw it out there. You have to learn it so you know it, and then you can use it. And once you use it and see how well it works, then you become wise.
Mm-hmm.
That's the process. Again, it's common law process. There is no substantive common law anymore. I agree, but the common law still exists, and it is stated in the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, Uniform Trust Law, and the United States Code, and every state statute here on America. It states the common law. So if it doesn't exist, then how come it's mentioned? Don't sit there and tell me that common law is no longer available to us. It is. We just have to know the process.
It's down to man to evoke each jurisdiction of the law. That is your court, not theirs. Your money pays for that court. Your bond is open. They are not there for free, those individuals. And if you don't know the rules of the game, then you're going to suffer. And to suffer is to allow, and you're going to allow yourself to go into that realm and be slaughtered. So know what you're doing before you advocate going into these places.
Okay. Anybody? I just had a thing here. A couple people mentioned my volume keeps going up and down and stuff, so I'll try to make it clear. And Tony said,
you're putting your finger on the microphone there, brother.
And I believe it's a private group. So just send me a message in private messenger. Please don't post on my page asking for invite.
Living the common law way.
Private messenger.
Make sure
so we can talk a little bit. And if I feel
living the common law way.
If I feel I'll invite you. But like I said, it's information you have to You have to be able to put to use. You can't, I'm not going to invite people that are just going to want to read it. You have to have some kind of justiciable concern in need. You have to have some kind of something besides just status correction to want to be involved in this group. You have to have something currently going on to correct the record, to be able to present an affidavit in order to make that correction before I'm going to invite
All
them.
on the record, David.
I
It's all
agree.
recorded.
This is information that needs to be used wisely. Period. So send me a private message in my messenger, and I'll be glad to invite you once I feel comfortable with your knowledge and the concept that you're going to do it wisely. You're going to go forth step by step and ask questions so that you know the answers before you present this document. The only way any affidavit works is if you present information that you know and that information is truthful.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're presenting information that's truthful, but you don't know what the information is, it's not going to work.
No, you have to be there in honor. You have to have clean hands. You have to know what you're doing, know what they say.
Right. In beginning was word. If you don't know what that word means, then how can it spew from your mouth? You have to be able to repeat what's on the document.
Etymology is the key.
Yeah, and so when it comes to this group here, real quick, Tony says she can't find it. I believe it's a private group. So again, just send me a message and we'll talk. Yes, private administrative process is what corporations use to this day. Right, it's private administrative process. Now think about this, people. Think about this very clearly. I tell people all the time, everything you think about is totally backwards. And when we think about these private administrative courts using a private administrative process, what's our private administrative process? What's the process, private administrative process for a private man? Common law. The first thing in any common law case is an affidavit. Period.
Absolutely.
You cannot, when the police pull you over and they give you this ticket called a complaint and they present it to the prosecution, that's all they present. They don't ever present an affidavit, which is the cause. They present the complaint, which is the nature, but they don't present an affidavit, which is the cause. So when you go to court and the judge asks, do you understand the nature and cause of the charges? Well, you may understand the nature because you were given a copy of the nature, the ticket, but you don't understand the cause because there is no cause. Nobody's made an affidavit. That's the administrative process they use. They don't require an affidavit. They use everything as presumption.
Absolutely.
When you use an affidavit, that's the common law process of rebutting presumption. You're clearing up the presumption.
Absolutely.
You're making known proofs. The one side has facts, and you have facts that show truth. They're all facts. It's a fact. You have to have a driver's license in order to drive. That is a fact. That is truth. But when you present your fact that you have the right to travel, and you do not have to present any kind of identification showing that you're in some kind of commercial capacity, then that's your affidavit. And you present that as your truth. And of course, you can't just say, well, I don't have to. You have to substantiate that with the facts that they show in their own books and that have been found in case laws throughout history. I listed a list of the case laws that I went through and read on my travel case. And I think there was like 40 some cases. And I listed them all on my page. If you're ever interested in right to travel cases, look through my page. You'll find it sooner or later. There's a list of like 40 some cases, travel cases alone. And that's what it takes. You have to know the information so that when you make your affidavit, you know both their facts and your own facts, period. And like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to educate yourself, and it's going to take time. So when you put in your first affidavit and you realize, oh, wait a minute, something didn't work, you can't just say the affidavit didn't work.
The commercial realm and investment, it's all investment. And the best investment man can make is in himself. The best investment I've ever made is in myself by sitting down and learning this stuff and going through it with a fine tooth comb, taking your time, doing it with diligence, doing it with care, compassion, and love, with the correct will, and you will get there.
Yes, everybody will if you just put your heart to it. I mean, I don't have any children left in my life, but I always think, again, back to the Genesis 1, 26 and 28, I'm here. And when I think about
You got your finger on the mic, brother.
I think about your children as my children. I think about your parents as my parents. I think about your cousins as my cousins. I think about all of that as mine.
And so we should.
Multiverse. I'm part of that omniverse.
Love thy neighbor as you
And
love
so,
thyself. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's the only way we're going to be able to beat this corruption. And again, like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. The public education indoctrination didn't happen in one day. It happened over centuries. And that's the same thing we're looking at today. It's not going to be, it's not going to happen overnight, you know.
It's divide and rule through man, woman, it's gender, sexuality, race, religion, creed, colour, all these divide implementations that they have implemented on the man. That we all need to realise that we are all of one. Your brothers are mine, your sisters are mine, mine are yours.
Right.
You are I and I am you. We are in each other's reflection. We are created in the reflection of, so that must mean we and you are in the right reflection. So it isn't proper to me, it isn't proper to you. And this is the lifestyle that one must lead to carry out that which is forthright and righteousness.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, brother. It's been a good talk, but it's lunchtime over here. I'm getting hungry. I got to go grab a bite to eat. And if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless y'all. I love you. Take this information, learn it, know it, use it, and be wise.
Peace and love, mate. Peace and love. 10-10, Mad Dog.
Have a good day,
catch up
brothers.
soon. Thank you.
Sisters.
Bonjour.
Yep, yep.